This week's question is there a way to figure out, astrologically speaking, when we should do something we're afraid of? I love this question. I love all the questions I answer. But this question is interesting because there are going to be times that you are encouraged to do something that you're afraid of, astrologically speaking. I think beyond astrology, it's really important to do things that you're afraid of doing when you feel ready to do it. And often we don't, quote unquote, feel ready, but there's a difference between not feeling ready and not feeling ready and not being ready, right? Like, I actually don't want you to do things that you're terrified of doing before you're structurally ready to do it. So it's up to you to discern the difference between those two things. Am I afraid, but can I do it anyways? Like, do I have the capacity? Do I have the bandwidth to handle the blowback, to work through the complications? Do I trust myself enough to say, like, no matter what happens with this, I'm going to be able to figure it out? Or am I so afraid of this thing that I might actually need to work on building myself up a little bit more, like building up my relationship with myself? Because if I don't trust myself to be able to meet the moment, no matter what it is, then I have to start there, right? Like, maybe I have to start smaller. Like, maybe if there's this big thing that you want to do that's really, really scary, amazing. I love that. I really do. Like, I want to do things that I'm afraid of all the time. I do things that I'm afraid of all the time. Sometimes the blowback internally is a lot. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I actually underestimated how powerful that was going to be, or how intense that was going to be for me. And then I have to learn the hard way. So it all depends on that. That's first and foremost. I just want to say that because I don't know what we're talking about when you say things that scare me. Like, sometimes if that's like speaking to somebody that has wronged us or that we have a really complicated past with, there are times where I've not been ready to do that. And that's okay. I can wait. Those are things that don't have to be done immediately. If it's like going out and trying to get a job or trying to get some work or trying to like figure out how to take care of myself, those things are more immediate and I just have to kind of get over it and do it anyways. So depending on what we're talking about. But I definitely would look at Mars transits. And Mars transits are complicated because they can often be really hard. But if Mars is doing something helpful, either in the sky or to your chart, like if Mars is trining your ascendant or trining your sun, or Mars in the sky is trining the Mars in your chart, or Mars in the sky is lending support to your midheaven, your career point, or if Mars in the sky is lending support, like by trine or sextile to your IC, to the base of your chart, and you want to do something, that's difficult or challenging with family or in terms of an issue about the past, then that could be good. So I would look for sextiles and trines from Mars in the sky in the transit section of the Chani app. Look for, short-term transits and look under and see, is Mars sextiling, is Mars trining anything in my chart? If you have anything in Aries or in Scorpio and Mars makes a conjunction with that planet, again, it's complicated because Mars can be overheating or overly intense. But because Mars rules those signs, or Capricorn, because Mars has a special relationship with those three signs, Aries, Capricorn, and Scorpio, when Mars is in one of those signs and you have a planet or a point there, you will feel extra power from Mars as it transits over. So again, you'd look in the Chani app under short-term transits and look to see if Mars is making a conjunction to a planet in Scorpio, Aries, and again, I would throw in Capricorn because Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So those are times where you might feel extra courage or extra bold or extra motivated, or like doing scary things is easier. The other thing you could look for is just generally good astrology, because that will be generally supportive to you. Like a generally supportive Venus, Jupiter aspect will make things easier, which, can sometimes make us lazy It can sometimes make us also need to just revel in the easy things, which is not being lazy. It's being receptive and getting filled up with what we need. So you might want to do the hard thing with good astrology because it will, float your boat a little bit. It'll help the hard things be a little easier. And then you might notice that you do hard things and you go and look at your astrology and you're like, oh my God, I was under this really extreme transit. And I guess the only thing to do was something hard. Like, this is also complicated, but I wouldn't plan on doing something super difficult under a really difficult piece of astrology. But guess what? Every time there's a really difficult piece of astrology, especially when it lands in my chart personally, I end up doing really, really hard things. So I also know that when the astrology is challenging, it's going to demand that I do something challenging. So on one hand, I don't want to burn myself out. I don't want to add extra weight to the slog of life and to the challenging moment. But if I'm like going through my Saturn return, I'm going to be like, well, this is the time to do something difficult. It is. I tell this story a lot, but when Mars was making a square to Saturn, and I think they were both retrograde, and it was like this, they were, or at least Mars was retrograde through Aries. And it was in 2020. And it was just like, we were in COVID. It was so bad. It was like in September, I believe. And it was just like this gnarly little corner of astrology. And we were working on the app. It was before the app launched. And we ended up having to edit and rewrite all these entries that we thought were good to go. And we worked just solid for 17 days straight. It was just me and Sonia, my wife and business partner, in a room for 17 days straight, just reading, writing, editing. And it was of course, this is the hardest astrology, and we're doing one of the hardest things we could do right now in a really, hard global moment. So would I have planned to do that? No. Did I tell everybody at that time not to over plan or, do too much work? Yes, because I knew there would be something. So this is my complicated way of saying, when you're ready to do the hard thing, the astrological signature will be yes, this is the hard thing. If you want to look at the astrology and look at when you're supported, I would look at when your sun is supported, right? I named all the Mars things. I would look at when Mars is doing supportive things to you, i.e. a sextile or trine to especially your sun, your ascendant, your midheaven, your own Mars, or when you're having a Mars conjunct transit a planet in Scorpio, Aries, or in Capricorn or a point, then you might notice more energy and more get up and go and I'm not afraid of anything kind of vibe. And then I would also look at times that were naturally bolstering to your sense of confidence. So Jupiter making a trine, a sextile, a conjunction, even a square, or maybe even an opposition to your ascendant or your sun or your Mars. I would look for those things that lift you up and get you going. And I think the most interesting thing to do quite often is to follow your impulses and then look at the astrology afterwards and be like, oh my God, that's what was happening. And then the astrology kind of teaches you. Now, if you're going to launch a business or do something that's I've been working really hard at this thing and I want to launch something, that's a different question, because then you do want to have an exceptionally good chart. You want the whole chart, the whole moment to be set up for success long term. So that's another question we could get into at another time if you wanted to.